Most people think they understand what drives XRP's future, but a recent comment from Ripple leadership makes it clear that the real shift is happening far deeper than price charts or retail speculation. A single public statement, almost hidden inside an interview, confirms something analysts have suspected for years. XRP's role in the global financial system is entering a new phase. Not hype, not theory. A structural pivot that affects every asset you already hold. Gold, stocks, bonds, and yes, even your retirement accounts. Before we break this open, take a second to like this video so more XRP holders get the clarity they deserve. Subscribe to Matrix Millionaire so you stay ahead of every major development. And remember, this is not financial advice. This is research, analysis, and interpretation of publicly available information from Ripple, regulators, and global financial institutions. In that recent discussion, Ripple's executives emphasized something that changes the entire conversation around XRP. They made it clear that XRP is not designed to compete with other cryptocurrencies. It is designed to interact with the same system that already moves trillions of dollars in value every single day. And for the first time, Ripple publicly acknowledged that this system is transitioning faster than most people realize. Brad Garlinghouse stated that the global shift toward real-time settlement is no longer an experiment. It is becoming an operational requirement. That word, requirement, carries a different weight. It signals that institutions are no longer testing digital settlement as a possibility. They are preparing to incorporate it as a necessity. And when necessity enters a financial system, value is reassigned. Assets that were once secondary suddenly become foundational. This is exactly what most XRP holders miss. They think a surge comes from news events or sudden hype. But Ripple has been consistent. The real catalyst is when institutions need the efficiency XRP provides. David Schwartz has mentioned publicly that XRP's true utility becomes visible only when stress on the global system reaches a certain threshold, when delays, cost, and liquidity fragmentation become too big to ignore. That threshold is appearing right now across multiple markets. Ripple's own enterprise clients have begun highlighting faster settlement as a competitive edge. Not someday, not in theory, today. They're talking about eliminating pre-funded accounts, removing friction, and accessing instant liquidity across borders. These are not speculative benefits. These are operational shifts. And when enough institutions require that capability, XRP does not rise because of retail enthusiasm. It rises because the financial system recalibrates around the asset that makes the new rails possible. That is why this recent Ripple comment matters. It is the public signal that the infrastructure phase is ending and the activation phase is beginning. And when an asset transitions from testing to reliance, its value is determined by the size of the system it supports, not the price people remember it trading at. We now have the statement, we have the structural shift, and we have the first confirmation that XRP's role in the global architecture is expanding. In the next section, we're going to break down exactly what this shift means, how Ripple's own network mechanics expose the next phase of XRP's journey, and why this one public comment genuinely changes everything for the asset you're holding. Ripple's network does not expand in the same way most technologies grow. It does not rely on hype cycles or viral excitement. It grows through the steady pressure of institutional demand. And when that demand crosses certain thresholds, the entire ecosystem starts behaving differently. That is the part of the story most XRP holders have never seen, because it happens behind the scenes, inside corridors, liquidity hubs, and enterprise integrations that rarely make headlines. Ripple's public documents make one thing very clear. Every on-demand liquidity corridor begins quietly. There is always a testing phase. Limited volume, limited partners, controlled flows. During this phase, XRP's chart looks uneventful. That calmness fools people into thinking nothing is happening. But for Ripple, quiet is a sign of progress. Quiet means the rail is functioning. Quiet means the architecture is stabilizing. Quiet means institutions are pushing value without broadcasting it. And then something changes. A corridor that once moved small batches of value begins moving significantly larger volumes. The financial institutions using the rail expand the number of currencies they settle with it. Partners begin linking additional corridors through the same liquidity pathways. Settlement times drop, friction drops, and suddenly, the system that once relied on slow rails discovers a new baseline for speed. That transition, from testing to reliance, is where XRP's true value finally begins to reveal itself. Ripple's leadership has confirmed that this exact transition is happening. Brad Garlinghouse has publicly stated that global demand for real-time settlement is accelerating as institutions face rising pressure to reduce costs and eliminate unnecessary capital trapped in pre-funded accounts. That kind of pressure forces change. And when pressure forces change, the assets that enable that change begin climbing into a new valuation category. David Schwartz has also pointed out that XRP's efficiency is not fully understood until institutions operate under real-world conditions. In a controlled test environment, XRP looks fast. But in a live corridor with real transactional stress, XRP becomes indispensable. That word matters, indispensable, because it marks the point where XRP stops being an option and becomes part of the core mechanism of movement. Here is where Ripple's public escrow reports add another layer. Each month, Ripple releases and returns XRP based on enterprise needs. This pattern has revealed something important. Over time, the cushion of XRP available for private institutional sourcing becomes thinner. And as that cushion shrinks, the reliance on open market liquidity increases. When enterprise demand meets public liquidity, that is when the valuation system recalibrates. This is why the recent Ripple statement is so significant. It confirms that institutions are moving into the phase where efficiency is no longer optional. Corridors are expanding, liquidity requirements are increasing, settlement expectations are tightening. That alignment is the exact combination Ripple has described for years as the catalyst for XRP's next era. And this is the part that truly changes everything. When institutions begin shaping their operations around a rail, the value of that rail no longer reflects speculation. It reflects necessity. Necessity from banks, necessity from payment providers, necessity from corridors that cannot function without instant liquidity. This is not XRP being valued by retail sentiment. This is XRP being valued by global demand. And once global demand enters the equation, the old conversation about price becomes irrelevant. What matters is the scale of the system XRP is supporting, a system that moves trillions of dollars every single day. In the final section, we're going to connect this structural shift to the statement Ripple leadership made, the one that indicates the activation phase is beginning, and explain why this truly changes everything for XRP and for every holder watching this unfold. The most important signal in this entire conversation comes from a single line Ripple leadership shared publicly, a line that didn't make headlines, didn't spark a frenzy on social media, and didn't trend for even a moment. But for anyone who understands how financial systems evolve, it was the clearest confirmation yet that XRP is entering a fundamentally different phase. Brad Garlinghouse stated that global markets are shifting from innovation experiments to infrastructure decisions. That may sound simple, but inside the world of enterprise finance, that phrase is transformational. It means institutions are no longer exploring faster settlement as an interesting idea. They are choosing which rails will carry the next generation of value. And once a system reaches that point, adoption no longer relies on excitement. It relies on performance, reliability, and necessity. That is where XRP now stands. This shift matters because it matches the pattern found in every major financial transition. The new system is not adopted because people speculate on it. The new system is adopted because the old one becomes too slow, too expensive, and too limiting for a global economy that is moving faster every year. When that happens, the asset that powers the new system is not valued by hype. It is valued by its role. And that is exactly what Ripple's leadership just confirmed. XRP is not waiting to become useful. It is already operating in corridors that demand speed and efficiency. It is already supporting institutions that cannot afford friction. It is already part of a network that is beginning to absorb more value than the market currently recognizes. And as the global system transitions into real-time settlement, XRP's role expands from supportive to foundational. This is why the phrase, "this changes everything," is not dramatic. It is accurate. Because the moment the financial system decides which rail it will build on, every asset connected to that rail is revalued according to the scale of the system it supports. That revaluation is not theoretical. It is not emotional. It is mathematical. When demand shifts from optional to required, the market aligns with necessity, and XRP is being positioned directly in the path of that necessity. So if you are watching this right now, understand what that means about you. You are not here reacting to noise. You are here because you recognize the structural signals that most people overlook. You understand that markets move long before the headlines do. You understand that value comes from purpose. And you understand that when Ripple leadership signals a transition into infrastructure-level deployment, the future for XRP is no longer defined by the past. Before you go, take a second to support this community of forward thinkers. Hit like so more XRP holders get information grounded in research instead of speculation. Subscribe to Matrix Millionaire so you stay ahead of every structural shift happening behind the scenes. And drop one word in the comments, shift, because that is exactly what's happening right now. A A shift from speculation to utility, from testing to activation, from potential to purpose. This moment is bigger than price. It is bigger than hype. It is the beginning of the system XRP was designed to serve. Welcome to Matrix Millionaire. The next chapter begins now.